The royal family lost its monarch recently, and as the United Kingdom mourns its late queen, there is still so much that must be decided upon until things can return to normal. One of the biggest questions on the lips of many regards the enormous wealth that Queen Elizabeth II had obtained throughout her life, and where most of it will wind up. There is also the question of what powers and responsibilities fall upon the newly appointed King Charles III, and how much of a change the death of the Queen will have on the country as a whole. While many of King Charles's responsibilities are decided by historical precedent or legacy, there are quite a few decisions that he will have to make entirely on his own, and these will ultimately decide what kind of king he will be. So with that in mind, let's take a look at how much responsibility now falls on the shoulders of the new king, as well as the assets that are now under his control. Number 1. The Crown Estate. Perhaps the most important thing that the new king will inherit will be the Crown Estate, which is a collection of shopping malls, busy London streets, and a steadily growing number of wind farms that are valued at nearly $19 billion by most financial experts. King Charles will take the role of chairman of the Crown Estate for the remainder of his reign, and it is worth noting that although his word will obviously carry a lot of sway, he doesn't have complete control over the listings and will have to submit his plans to the board for approval. The Crown doesn't technically get the revenue from the listings, as that goes to the Treasury officially, but King Charles will still make a fortune off of the rent alone, which the royal family is entitled to in its entirety. This year, the value of sales coming in from the Crown Estate are estimated at around $363 million, which the royal family will get about 25% of. Number 2. The ceremonial and reserved powers of the Crown. Since 1689, Great Britain's government structure has been classified as a constitutional monarchy, meaning that the monarch does not have the absolute power that they once did. Still, King Charles will have access to several important powers, even though they are rarely exercised in the modern day. Among the most important of his powers is the king's ability to summon Parliament for a meeting whenever he pleases, and the ability to dismiss the current Prime Minister if he has lost the support of Parliament's House of Commons. These are called reserve powers, and exist to maintain the strength of the most important position in England, and even though they are rarely needed, it is a lot of power for King Charles to inherit and ensure that he will stay involved if the political situation deems it necessary. His word alone will warrant quite a response from Parliament, and many are interested to see how he is going to decide to go about as the keeper of the nation's constitutional flame. Number 3. The Lancashire Survey. Another deeply important piece of inheritance for the newly appointed king is the Lancashire Survey, which is a massive tract of land totaling 9,740 acres. It is made up of 4 estates, one of which, Myerscough, has been owned by the Crown since the 13th century. The Whitewell Hotel, where Queen Elizabeth celebrated her 80th birthday, as well as the Duchy's first holiday cottage in Lancashire, are also located within the survey, and the area as a whole is recognized as an area of outstanding natural beauty in the UK. Besides the beauty and getaway spots, are also some important limestone and sandstone quarries, both of which help to make up the urban structure of London's buildings and pull in a great deal of money for the royal family. There are also several livestock farms on the property, and over 50 cottages and homes littering the beautiful landscape. The revenue brought in from the Lancashire Survey is tremendous, and is essentially a $949 million portfolio that King Charles is now inheriting. Number 4. The Cheshire Survey. Many of the official royal residences that have been either inherited or bought up by the royal family throughout their reign now belong to King Charles, and one of the most important of these properties is the Cheshire Survey. This property consists mainly of a large rural estate that totals a whopping 3,760 acres and is located in the historic Crewe area. Also located on the properties are some other historic buildings like the Crewe Hall and Crewe Hall Farm, which still are in use today in the form of office buildings. The Duchy has been very active recently here, building properties and expanding the business side of the Cheshire Survey to ensure that whoever inherits it next will also receive a thriving economic space. The property alone brings in quite a bit of money for the royal family and is a key part of their economic success, both historically as well as moving forward. If you're loving this video, then make sure to subscribe and leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," and we will personally reply to your comment. Number 5. The Queen's private fortune. Although we are still waiting for more details to come out about the will and testament of Queen Elizabeth, it is expected that she will leave her private fortune to the new king, as her father did to her when he passed. The royal family has always been tremendously secretive about their fortune and do not disclose the exact amount publicly. This is also because the fortune itself isn't where the money is, but rather in assets like the ones we discussed previously. The grand total of her wealth is estimated to be about $340 million, and that is including the Sandringham estate and Balmoral Castle, which were gifted to her personally by her father when he passed. King Charles will most likely inherit most, if not all, of the Queen's wealth, as the goal of the royal family is to keep the bloodline strong with both their money and influence. In order to prevent the royal family's money from being sapped in the case that the monarchs would die in quick succession, there will be no inheritance tax given to King Charles on his fortune, meaning that he will take on the entirety of the $340 million without any percentage going to the government. Number 6. The Foreshore Survey. The last major piece of land that King Charles will be inheriting from the late Queen is the Foreshore Survey, which forms part of the Duchy of Lancaster's ancient inheritance. The land that the Crown owns has changed since then, however, with large parts of it being sold throughout the 19th century. This has resulted in some differences from the other estates we've mentioned, mainly the Mersey Dock system and land along Blackpool's Promenade, no longer being under Crown control. The land is more industrial, with subsea pipelines and fiber optic cables, clashing with sheep and cattle grazing on marshes. The Foreshore Survey does include a number of historical buildings of great cultural significance. Both Halton and Lancaster castles call the location home. Lancaster Castle has seen a lot of changes as of late, being a former prison turned into a museum for tourists in 2011. The castle has had many renovations and restoration projects starting in 2018 as a result. Number 7. The Queen's Racehorses. The Queen of England was very much known for her love of horse racing, and that will now fall into the hands of King Charles as he begins to take over. While you may think that the Queen just loved animals, as her multiple corgis that became unofficial mascots to her reign demonstrated, she was actually a keen watcher of the races themselves. In 2017, it was reported that Queen Elizabeth made roughly $7 million betting on the races, and apparently had a gift for picking the winning horse. As King Charles amassed his own private fortune in property management and investment, it is unclear what Charles will do with this property, or if he has any interest in it at all. Regardless, much of the responsibility of the new king will not just involve becoming the ceremonial leader of Great Britain, but also taking care of the previous leader's prized possessions, even if in this case it was more of a personal interest than a business venture. Number 8. Her investments and community projects. As Queen, Elizabeth wasn't just some monarch who confined herself to Buckingham Palace and away from society all day. As the figurehead of one of the most illustrious and storied countries in the world, a lot of her time and money went into supporting and uplifting those within her immediate area. This is one of the responsibilities that King Charles will inherit from Elizabeth that will eat up the majority of his time, and what he decides to do could decide his legacy. Before him, Queen Elizabeth helped renovate the John Lennon Airport in 1999, became the royal patron of the Lancashire Cricket Club, and was deeply involved with the Manchester Royal Infirmary. Among many other projects, she was also an important member of the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Society and Orchestra, and generally had a fondness for music. These endeavors were made by her, and not by some legacy arrangement, like many of the inheritances we mentioned here. And so it stands to reason that, As well as carrying on some of these arrangements, King Charles may very well choose his own interests that mean more to him. And if you found this video useful, then you'll love these. And be sure to like this video to let the YouTube algorithm know you'd like to see more videos like this one.